It's a platform 120 feet tall just for dropping stuff. This is a motorized steel barrel just for strapping down a car and turning it upside down. I'm not sure what this one's for, but I'm pretty sure I could come up with something cool to do with it. Where am I? I'm in Arizona, in the middle of 150 acres of pure awesome. This is pretty much what I would design as my ideal playground. It's a test facility designed to break things, smash things, make them fail, and analyze the aftermath. This is one of the test facilities owned by Exponent Systems, and today they're going to help us smash some cars.
And first up to feel the crash force is this.
So this is our car.
This is our car. We're going to smash it at 50 miles an hour into a wall.
Well, let's get started.
All right. How's all this going to go down? This is a 1,280-foot long crash rail. It has a track embedded in it and a cable that pulls a car along that track towards the impact spot.
These two V8 engines, which have about 800 horsepower between them, pull this cable, which pulls the car up to the desired speed.
When the car gets to about here, the cable's going to release it, so it's traveling only under its own momentum, right into this big steel thing. It's at this point that we'll have a complete picture of what happens to a car when it's going 50 miles an hour and comes to a dead stop by crashing into a wall.
It's not just a picture they'll be getting. Jamie has also added some high-tech trickery to capture the force facts.
There we go. Inside the car, underneath the back seat, is mounted a block of accelerometers that measure deceleration of the impact in 3 separate axes of movement. That information is sent back to a data logger that's mounted in the back of the car. It records all that information. It's kind of like a black box.
Just like in the small-scale test, they'll gather the stats for a 50-mile-per-hour wall crash, a 100-mile-per-hour wall crash, and then finally a 50-mile-per-hour head-on collision.
This crash, it's basically a data point, one of 2 that we will obtain in order to correctly analyze our head-on collision. Careful viewers will note that in the full scale, we're following the same experimental procedure as we did with our hammers and clay. We think it has a nice symmetry. Shall we log the pre-crash length?
Sure.
15 feet.
All right then.
All right, the cable's ready. Come on in.
With the length logged and the black box engaged, the car is ready to meet its fate, slamming into a solid steel wall at 50 miles per hour.
All right, this is one car into one wall at 50 miles an hour. Take it away.
Okay, Bob, we're ready for roll-out.
The V8 engines roar as they spin the cable. And the car gains speed till it's holding at precisely 50 miles per hour. And then plows headlong into a wall of steel.
Oops.
I hope they're insured.
Yep, it's a car crash, I think.
Yeah, I'd say what happened here is this car here hit this wall. There.
It's a spectacular smash. The force of the impact crunched the front of the car like a car hitting a steel wall at 50 miles per hour, leaving it 3.5 feet shorter.
11 feet 7 inches.
But of course, that's not the only impact stat.
What say we find out what the G load was?
These guys are downloading the data about the crash right now. Okay, here's the stats on that crash. This car hit that wall at 50.7 miles per hour and took an average of 58 Gs in the longitudinal direction. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that when we smash a car into this wall at 100 miles an hour, the G load is going to be significantly higher.
Adam and Jamie have been testing whether you can shoot the gun out of your opponent's hand, leaving them unarmed and unharmed. The unharmed department is not looking so good.
That is some nasty damage.
And although the bad guys dropped their gun in 2 out of the 3 positions, Adam is not convinced unarmed is working out either.
The gun didn't fall out.
He thinks there's a missing human link. But with shooting at each other out of the question, how do they test this safely?
We're only testing one metric of the gun holder, which is his grip strength holding onto the gun. And I think there may be other factors involved. Specifically, I want to know what it's like for that shooter when that shock force is applied to the gun. So, coming up, one subjective shock force test.
And this is Adam's plan. In this test, he's pulling some strings to narrow down the element of surprise. He'll give Jamie an unexpected short, sharp jolt, simulating the shock of having your handgun shot out of your hand.
Just don't look that way.
I'll look this way.
There you go. I'm hoping this simulates to some degree what it's like to hold onto a gun that's been shot. Jamie, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Jamie, hold the gun in the correct orientation. That's great. Now, I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to drop it. It got knocked out of your hand.
It did.
How did that feel?
Well, when you're not expecting it, it's like pretty aggressive.
So the surprise of our little string pull experiment made you drop the gun, eh?
It did, but you know, I somehow imagined that a real bullet hitting the gun would have more sting to it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I think I've got a rig in my head that might be able to add that to the mix.
Okay then.
So what is it like when one of these gets shot out of your hand? I think that it would sting like hell. I think it'd be like hitting something hard with a baseball bat. So what I'm gonna do is take this pistol, use it as a template to take an aluminum plate, put some gun handles on it, and a big paddle out here. See where I'm going with this? And then I'm gonna have Jamie hit that paddle with something like a baseball bat and see how hard it is to hold on. I think I might wanna let go immediately. We're getting close. You don't know this about me, but I have a particular penchant for objects that were clearly made for a very specific function, and yet what that function might be has been lost to time. And this definitely falls into that category. Ta-da! I'm very pleased. I can state without reservation, this is my favorite thing I've ever built for this show. Yeah. If you will hold that.
And with a little help from Slugger Heineman, Adam is going to put his new favorite toy to the test.
I'm just trying to think, how much damage could I sustain from this? It's just gonna sting. Okay. My eyes are closed. Ah! Wow! Ow! Yeah. No, there's no way you'd be holding on to that thing. God, that hurt.
And here's how much it hurt in glorious, technicolored, 1,000 frames a second slow motion.
Ow, that looks painful.
Yeah, it definitely was a stinging, ringing sensation. Wow! Ow!
The shock and the pain in Adam's face was really evident, and may I say also really satisfying. But how does that relate to a bullet hitting a gun in terms of energy transfer? Well, on the one hand, we have a bat, 800 grams. It was traveling 85 miles per hour, and that gives us a potential energy of 428 foot-pounds force. On the other hand, we have a bullet, 15 grams, traveling 613 miles per hour, and the potential energy there is 416 foot-pounds force. Those numbers are basically the same, and yet somehow I'm not going to be satisfied unless I get something really close to an actual bullet hitting an actual gun and one of us holding on to it.
Next up is the accidental rocket that could ruin your next barbecue.
So you're looking excited. What's up?
It's our myth. It's a good one, which kind of reminds me of my childhood.
Okay, hit me.
All right, imagine a garage or a shed is on fire. Inside is a barbecue with a propane tank. It explodes and turns into a rocket, launching 150 feet into the air.
Oh, I've heard of this one. It's very similar to the water heater rocket. The heat causes the pressure inside the tank to build, then there's a catastrophic rupture and sends the tank flying up into the sky.
Wait. This reminds you of your childhood?
Yeah, I'd rather not talk about it. My parents are still a little upset.
Like they said, this isn't the first time we've adapted a pressure vessel. Or deliberately set one on fire. Or even tried to turn a gas tank into a missile. But if this myth is true, catastrophe could be brewing in your own backyard. The story goes that a propane tank once became a rocket. At its perfect trajectory, hit 150 feet.
Look, I gotta say, I got my doubts about this.
How so?
Propane tanks, just like all of the pressurized vessels, have a pressure relief valve built in. When the pressure gets too high, they simply vent off the excess, thereby averting a catastrophic failure.
Yeah, but what if the fire is so intense that the pressure is building faster inside the tank than the relief valve can dump out?
I suppose it's possible.
Fun day at the bomb range.
Now, for this myth, we need a burning garage with a propane tank inside of it. Now, since no one's gonna let us burn down a garage, we need to build our own, but we don't have time to build a full-size one, so we're gonna make a miniature one. But we're still gonna build it up to code. It's gonna have studs every 16 inches, it's gonna have 3 walls, a driveway, and a roof. Now that should be plenty of material to burn in order to get this garage hot enough to turn this propane tank into a rocket.
So you're probably wondering, how can a propane tank turn into a rocket? Let me paint the picture. You heat up the tank, the pressure inside builds to a high amount. Enough that the tank ruptures somewhere, hopefully in a small pinhole that forms a nozzle. Gas comes shooting out, it catches fire, and all of that causes thrust that launches the tank up into the air like a rocket.
They're hoping this neat little outhouse will eventually burn at a temperature of over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's almost too pretty to put to the torch, but beauty fades fast around here.
It's Tori's Playhouse! And a magic word for the day is explosions.
Here on the show, we like to say that every day's a good day for an explosion, but some days are definitely better than others.
I thought the dangerous part was gonna be the exploding propane tanks.
You all right?
Oh no.
It's hardly a firm foundation, but the guys know that today, the joys of shed ownership will be fleeting. As a rocket launch site, this will soon be a smoking pile of ashes. Shame, really.
Carrie, I really love these colors. They're very hot for fall, you know.
It's one of the hardest things on MythBusters, and one of the coolest things on MythBusters is you spend so much time on a beautiful build, and then you just obliterate it in seconds. Woo!
They're now ready to install the stunt barbecue and the star of the show.
Hey, don't forget the propane. Came straight from my garage.
But there's still some fuel to add to the fire.
So this kind of looks like a lot of firewood, right? Well, it is. Because what we want is for this fire to burn long and hot.
So they stack the shed with wood and charcoal, 2 common commodities that should catch fire and raise the temperature.
Now, this fire is gonna get so hot that there is a good chance that this tank is gonna explode.
But we want a rocket. And if the relief valve does its job, this could turn out to be nothing more than a backyard bonfire. Then again, one of the great things about MythBusters is that we're so often wrong.
Now, all we have to do is set it on fire. Is this thing gonna burn? Oh yeah, it is. Is it gonna explode? It might. Is it gonna turn into a rocket? I hope so.
After a liberal splash of gasoline,
That ought to do it.
the team shows its flair for setting a fire.
All right, you guys ready?
Ready?
Let's torch this thing in 3, 2, 1. Whoa! Run!
Each passing second feels like 10 as they hightail it back to the bunker.
What?
So seriously, we're compiling our all-time favorite MythBuster episodes?
Yep.
I got a few.
Totally. This is going to be awesome.
Well, what are you guys standing around for? Let's get started.
Oh, crap.
So we're all set to launch the Top 25 countdown. And it's going to be a wild ride full of spectacle, science, and an intriguing insight into the host's personal highlights. Not to mention all those fan favorites you love to see again and again and again.
So where do we begin? What do we got?
In at 25, the first most memorable Mythbuster moment is in fact the first ever myth. Yep, way back when Adam looked 16 and Jamie looked like Jamie, our dynamic duo took on the myth of the JATO rocket car. And to test it, they built their own jet-assisted takeoff rockets, attached them to a car, yeehaw, and hit the desert with mayhem in mind.
I'm gonna have to have a grinectomy.
It's funny, after all these years, at our first episode, the JATO rocket car is still a fan favorite and still actually really a high point for me and Jamie.
Brakes are coming off. We are a go.
Sitting in that chopper watching the rocket car take off.
Okay, we're in line. Okay, coming out of full throttle. I'm coming hot with the electronics.
It was just extraordinary.
Go ahead, set them off. Firing in 3, 2, 1, fire. 3, 2, 1, firing. 3, 2, 1, firing. We got them all.
I mean, the closest example that I can give to it is that it was like watching some sort of African animal take off really quickly across the savannah. Except this was a car with a rocket on it. I mean, it was beautiful. It was gorgeous.
At a classic Mythbuster moment.
That was hysterical. That was absolutely outrageous.
A hint of the absurd, a dash of engineering, and a side salad of busted urban myth.
Hey! That was beautiful.
From a single soaring moment in the Mojave to a whole lot of locking and loading. Responsibly, of course.
Let's do it.
Guns are a part of our standard stock and trade on this show, and I gotta say, I have some reservations about that because, well, they kill people, and that's to be avoided. But that being said, they're often fascinating, elegantly engineered machines that in our hands, where we use materials and tools in ways for which they were never intended,
I call it my little pop gun.
things get real interesting real fast. It's a lot of fun.
You're looking at a vegetarian
Hey, nice shot.
from California.
Let her have it, Carrie.
I never expected that I would be a gun person. Until I joined MythBusters.
Guns and ammo are part of the Mythbuster tradition, but that relationship is built on respect and an ultra-safe environment created by expert armorers and law enforcement officials.
And if you see anything unsafe, please report it to the range master.
But the moment that fires guns and ammo into number 24 is from the viewer-requested mini-myth that it was possible to cut down a tree with a machine gun. And after Tori and Grant failed with the small arms, our vegetarian tree-hugging hippie stepped up to ramp it up.
One of my all-time favorite moments on MythBusters was shooting a Gatling gun to mow down a tree. Okay, we're going hot. I had never shot anything this crazy before. In 3, 2, 1. We're talking 30 caliber bullets, 3,000 rounds per minute. Just
Well, you guys may have figured out by now that, well, me and Cars, we kind of have this thing, and there's a myth on the fan site that I really want to test out.
All right, what is it?
Are you familiar with the Cannonball films?
Yeah,
Sure.
from the 80s, right?
Okay, so it's the third installment that our myth comes from. The beginning of the movie, there's a red Lamborghini that is trying to evade the cops. Well, there's a lot of speeding and a lot of weaving and trickery, but man, the cops are not going to accept defeat. So what the sports car driver does is he drives off the road and heads straight towards the lake.
He totally floors it, skips across the water, makes it to the other side, and gets away from the cops.
Exactly.
I love it. Fast cars, skipping across the water. You should come here more often.
To flee the force, a speedy sports car skips the Lake Fantastic. But is this filmic fantasy or stone-cold fact? Could a 1.2-ton car really skim a pond like a skipping stone?
So what's the plan?
I have watched the scene over and over in slow motion. And what I have found that watching frame by frame and measuring points of reference, the car wasn't going very fast, maybe 50 miles an hour. It went off a little launch and skipped about 4 times over a 100-foot body of water.
Okay, sounds easy enough. We get a Lamborghini, drive it at 50 miles an hour, and see if it can skip across 100 feet of water.
Who is going to let us borrow their $250,000 car and drive into a lake to test this? I mean, it's not going to happen. This isn't going to be easy.
No, it's not. But although you can't always get what you want, sometimes you get what you need.
What in the heck did she get that for?
That doesn't look like a Lamborghini.
Yeah, far from it.
Supercar it ain't, but it's still a perfect stunt stand-in. On price tag and top speed, the luxury car has ours beat. But for this myth, what's key is that the surface area, weight, and weight distribution are almost identical. But because nobody is volunteering to drive it into a lake, our resident control geek gets to work.
I got a plan.
With Grant's remote control, under control, Tori's talking tracks.
Now for this myth, as well as a car, we need 2 things. 1, we need a long, straight road that we can get this car up to some pretty high speeds. And 2, at the end of that road, we need a 100-foot pond for this car to try to skip across. Now, we've looked all over San Francisco. We've looked all over California, and we've come up with nothing, which means only one thing. Road trip, baby. Wouldn't it have been easier if we could fly?
With local lakes few and far between, the team hits the road to a familiar location. The last time the team visited the test track of Freightliner, they put some big rig myths to the test. With open space and miles of trackway, it was the perfect place to put their lives on the line. And this time they've added a crucial addition to the end of the track, a giant purpose-built pond, ideal for a sports car to skip. Only not this one. This is just for show.
Why'd you stop? We're supposed to skip it.
Yeah, but that's why we have make-believe Lamborghinis.
Where did you get that car?
Well, a good friend let me borrow it.
Forget the car. What do you think about our pond?
This is a gorgeous pond. This is a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, we made it to the same dimensions as in the movie. 100 feet long, 27 feet wide, and 3 feet deep.
But you know, before we get to testing, since we can't use your Lamborghini, I got to get to work on the car.
All right, we need to talk about that ramp.
Yep, with a perfect pond to skim, Tori and Jesse break out the heavy machinery.
All right, so now what we're doing here is we are building a little ramp before we actually hit the water. Why? Because that's what they had in the movie. We can look at it as close as we possibly can. And that Lamborghini had a little bit of lift before it went across the water.
A little lift that equates to a movie-matching 8-inch mound. With that time-lapsed into place, Jesse casts the first stone.
Now this whole myth is about skipping a car across the water like a stone. I'm sure you've all tried it before. If you get a smooth enough stone and you fling it just right, it'll actually bounce across the water's surface. But why? Well, it's all about spin and speed. The spin on the stone stabilizes it and stops it from simply falling into the water. And if the stone is traveling at a fast enough speed, then each time it hits the water's surface and pushes some of the water downwards, the stone is forced upwards. So the stone continues to skip along the surface until eventually it runs out of speed and sinks.
So if skimming is all down to spin and speed, will a car that isn't revolving skip?
There's something that doesn't look quite right with this car. It doesn't look fast enough. That's a fast car.
Oh no.
Oh, yes.
That can only mean one thing.
Yes, it can. It means, backed by popular demand, it's time for the duct tape special number 2.
It was one of our most popular shows.
I'm giving it all we got, Captain.
When the MythBusters paid homage to duct tape, fans went into a frenzy.
More duct tape.
Love it.
Because you asked for it, they're putting more duct tape tales to the ultimate test.
Oh, it's for real.
First, they built a duct tape boat. This time, Adam and Jamie's duct tape challenge might land them in troubled waters.
That was a pretty cool boat. Gonna be hard to top it.
And yet, I feel we must try.
So what do you have in mind?
I see in my mind's eye a chasm, wide and deep, spanned only by duct tape,
A duct tape bridge.
that you and I can walk across.
Sounds dangerous.
Exactly.
A duct tape dinghy's one thing, but using duct tape to replace steel and stone? The tape's mythical adhesive and load-bearing capabilities are about to be stretched to the absolute limit. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
You know, before we decide on a final design, I think we should run duct tape through its paces in the shop downstairs. A series of bench tests, if you will.
Okay.
Look, obviously we're already pretty familiar with the awesome power of duct tape. But if we're gonna make a bridge out of this stuff that safely suspends us above a chasm, we're gonna have to determine a couple of things right up front. One, how much are we gonna need to support our body weight? Two, how are we gonna anchor the duct tape to the sides of that chasm? That's what we're about to test and figure out. So where do you want to begin?
What say we stretch out a single strand and see what it takes to break it?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Step 1, a single strand strength test.
Today, the role of our strength testing device will be played by a digital force gauge. I will pull on the duct tape with this hook, and right here it'll tell me how many pounds of force it takes before it breaks. 10, 12, 13. This is killing me. I don't mean it's hurting, it's just the anticipation. 63. Oh! 67.3 pounds of force to break it.
Wow, that's more than I would have thought.
Me too.
They might be well acquainted with duct tape's awesome qualities, but it still has the power to surprise.
I didn't realize the duct tape was going to be that strong. That means that we could, in fact, build a bridge, in theory, with like 3 or 4 strips of duct tape and nothing else.
That little laugh means Jamie's already plotting to put that theory to the test.
I want to stretch 4 across and sit on it.
And sit on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
One strand snaps at 67 pounds, so 4 strands should hold a 180-pound Heinemann, right?
You ready to sit on this?
I am. All right, go for it. Slow down, slow down.
So you're hanging.
I am. I would say I'm off the ground.
That's pretty stunning.
With a combined load-bearing capacity of more than 260 pounds, the 4 strands support Jamie. But they're drooping more than his mustache.
You're drooping like 6 feet over 30 feet. That's quite a bit.
Yep, it's supporting me, but I have to say 4 pieces of duct tape does not a bridge make.
We're now going to try a strand of 8 pieces of duct tape and see if we get less droop.
Will doubling the amount of tape have the droop factor?
You ready for sitting on 8 pieces?
I'm ready.
With Jamie sitting pretty on his perch, Adam runs a tape over the tape. And the news isn't good.
4 feet of droop instead of 5 feet of droop.
You would think that that doubling of the quantity of duct tape would, cut the amount of droop in half? But it didn't.
Hopes of a successful bridge are set.